r/AskReddit. What has been the most heartbreaking thing you've personally witnessed? I've walked the same 40-minute route to work for about 5 years now. Every day I passed the same old guy and his German Shepherd walking beside him with no lead, carrying an old battered tennis ball. I figured he went to the corner shop for morning paper or whatever. Anyway, a few months ago there was no dog, and the guy was carrying the tennis ball, and has done ever since. Shit, okay, here shows my age, but as the cool kids say, whatever. Back in about 1992, I was walking to a friend's place, when with no tire scream, there's a horrific car crash. I ran over to see a car had T-barred another at a roundabout. Canberra is full of them. Seeing as it was about 1 AM, and at the time this being nothing more than a sleepy hollow, a few people came out to investigate. At this point, my St. John's training kicked in and I told someone to go call an ambulance. The situation is thus: the driver who rammed the other car smells like a brewery, and is dead. He's also the driver who caused the accident by pushing through the roundabout. I get to the other car, and there's a girl. She's pretty messed up. The steering column has punctured her in the chest. There's blood everywhere. There are no crumple zones, so her own car is smooshed against her. I tell her that I know first aid, and that I'm not trying to grope her as a joke, trying to figure out the extent of her injuries. But I can feel all her ribs on her left side fucked up, and even at the light is tough, she's hurting. So I start talking to her, saying everything's alright. Well, it's not, but the ambulance is coming, and start making shitty jokes at her to keep her awake. Then I hear the ambulance in the distance, and tell her she's gonna be alright. She looks me in the eye, and says, "Why didn't I meet you earlier?" and dies. Turns out, 30 seconds can be an eternity. Watching my father descend into the grip of Alzheimer's. He's been battling it for the past 6 years. They don't tell you the truth about Alzheimer's in the books or in the movies. They don't tell you that the person who has it has a complete personality change. My father was the greatest dad any child could have, loving, caring, wonderful. He now is mean and physically abusive. He and my mother were passionately in love throughout the 40 years of their marriage. He recently ran her out of the house, threatening her life. They don't tell you that they go crazy at the end of the disease. They don't tell you that they see and talk to people that aren't there. They don't tell you that they can't go to the bathroom without help at the end. I'm only 27 years old. My father is 72, and he's completely gone. We've had to put him in a psych ward for dementia patients. They call it senior care. He hasn't said my name in over 2 years. He has no idea who I am, and it breaks my heart every single day. Sitting in the waiting room at my gyno's office for my yearly lady checkup. A visibly pregnant woman comes out of the offices, back into the waiting room. She's crying and on her phone, leaving someone a voicemail, saying please call me back as soon as you get this. They can't find a heartbeat. They're sending me to go get another ultrasound. Please call me back. I need you right now. I'm so scared. I looked around the waiting room after she walked out and realized that every woman in there, myself included, had started tearing up. Absolutely heartbreaking. A few months ago my stepdad, the only father I've ever known, told me he had to go into hospital for a few tests, nothing major. Within a few days, the doctors informed me and my mum that my dad had to have a small low-risk operation. No one was too worried, but for some reason I just couldn't stop crying, which is completely out of character for me. I remember seeing him off before he went into surgery, where he looked into my eyes and told me he loved me and to look after my mum. I was being terrible and harassed my mum to take us home to get some rest before my dad came out again, only to get a call from the doctors to say the operation had been delayed and my daddy wanted to see us. Unfortunately, by the time we got to the hospital, he was already taken in. They said it would be an 4-hour operation. It was after the 6th hour we really began worrying, and when he came out, we were told he was in intensive care due to some unforeseen circumstances. We waited by his side for days until eventually, very early in the morning, I watched his heart monitor flatline and his lips turn blue. I think the worst part about it was that I denied him the chance to see us one more time because I was tired. He was scared and we weren't there for him. The most heartbreaking moment was walking out with a bag full of clothes when only days before, I walked in with the most amazing dad. Thanks Reddit. I really needed to let it out, but I don't feel as if I can talk to my friends about it, as a lot of them abandoned me when they realized I didn't have the motivation to go out anymore. And I don't want my mum to think I'm too hurt by it, because she's only just begun to recover and needs me more than ever. Honestly, I really appreciate it. Late to the party, but what else? This is not my story, it's my mom's. One day she was heading home from work on foot, and out of nowhere she sees a dog run onto the street and getting hit by a bus. The dog's owner witnessed this and ran over to his dog, and he took the dog in his arms, just holding it, while just searing his eyes out, which is quite understandable. I'm so glad I didn't witness that. I was at a gun range when I saw some guy abusing a small dog. I walked over to them to leave the dog alone, and I realized this dog was only a puppy and was obviously scared shitless. I have never seen people act so cruelly towards a helpless animal. I went off on those bastards. I got in each of their faces and I threatened them in every way I knew how. I told them that if they shot that dog I would shoot each one of them and not give a flying fuck about the loss of their scumbag lives. I picked that puppy up and took her to my house. She will be 9 this year and is one of the greatest dogs I have ever had. In honor of where I found her, I gave her the name of Annie Oakley. I was driving down my street one day, and there was a dead bunny in the road. Right next to it, there was another bunny, just looking at the dead one. I had somewhere to be, so I couldn't stop. About 3 hours later, I'm coming home, and still, the bunny's looking at the dead one, in the exact same spot. I can't be sure, but I have a feeling he never moved. I went home and got some lettuce, then walked back to the bunny. I was sure he was going to bolt, but he stayed still. I sat down, gave him some lettuce, and talked to him. He ate the lettuce almost absent-mindedly, just staring at the dead bunny. You could almost see the sadness in this little guy's eyes. After about 10 minutes, I decided to give him some privacy. As I got up to go, I noticed, in the mess that was the dead bunny, were what looked like little baby bunnies. The poor thing had been pregnant. I cried as I walked home. The next day, the road people had gotten the dead bunny, and the guy I gave lettuce to had gone. Broke my heart. I took my girlfriend to Cracker Barrel one morning, and we witnessed an elderly grandmother with her grandson eating. The little fucker had his iPod earbuds in the entire time. The grandmother tried once or twice to talk to the little shit, but he kept ignoring her. She kept insisting, and with a huge sigh he pulled out one earbud and said, "You're boring. I don't want to talk to you," to which the grandmother dejectedly ate the rest of her food in silence. I've never hit a kid before, but I would not have regretted popping him square in the nose one single bit. A few weeks ago I found a stray cat going through my trash. I gave him some tuna and he hung out with me for the rest of the day. I named him KB for Kitty Buddy. The cat would sleep on my porch on day. He would catch mice, birds, snakes and put them in front of my door every day. Last week I woke up, went to go feed him, and he was dead on the road with a bird in his mouth. Today, while at work, library, a man came in and one of our regular patrons, a teen who's probably 15 or 16, came running up to him and gave him a hug. Turns out, the man is the teen's father. Now, through 2 years of seeing this kid almost every day, I know a few things about him. He's in foster care, his mom OD'd last year, he grew up on the streets, he was abused by several of his mom's boyfriends. So I was surprised to see he had a dad, honestly. But it became quickly apparent, to everyone else, that the dad wasn't that into seeing his son. But the boy could not see that. He was talking all about his life, his group home, his younger brothers, etc. Then he says, "Why don't we go to lunch? Let's go to Wendy's, right across the street." The dad goes, "Sure, let me go get my wallet, I'll be rig." And he walks out the door and doesn't come back. At all. This kid stood in the middle of the library for like an hour, then went back and forth between us and Wendy's for the rest of the day. A co-worker and I ended up sitting in the parking lot with this kid for like 2 hours after we closed, just letting him cry. This is a teenager who has seen and experienced the very worst things, many of them probably at the hands of his father, and yet he wanted so desperately to be part of his life. I've literally never felt so gutted in my life. All I want to do is tell this story to Liam Neeson, see the rage simmer, and then set him loose on this scumbag. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like, share and subscribe for more.